All right, you've been sufficiently forewarned. This meeting is being recorded, and welcome to Career Chats. We've been doing this since October of 2020. We've had many different healthcare providers and professionals as guest speakers, and this has been a fantastic opportunity for students to sit in and learn about all the different careers. Because how do you really know what you want to be when you grow up when you don't even know all of the options that are available to you out there? At my last count, there was about 311 different careers to choose just in health. So think about that. Tonight we have a wonderful guest speaker for you. Cindy, will you wave at everybody, Cindy?
Hello.
Cindy Felice, she is a trauma certified registered nurse working at Blake Medical Center as their trauma nurse coordinator. She also coordinates their outreach and injury prevention programs. And as we go on through this career chat this evening, she'll be telling you a lot more about her career and how she got to where she is today. But we always like to start off with a little bit of introduction to see what do you already know about these careers. So I'm interested in seeing what you already know about trauma nursing. So I'm getting ready to put a poll up on your screen. Make sure and look for it. Here it goes. You should now see the poll on your screen. The question is, a trauma nurse is a nurse who specializes in the care of patients who suffer an acute injury or illness, whether it is accidental or intentional. Trauma nurses are skilled in caring for patients of all ages. What types of trauma could these nurses treat? I'll wait until I see everybody has answered. We've got about 60% of you have answered so far. Still waiting on 3. All right, it looks like 1 more left to vote. And I've got some new students joining as we're going on. I'm going to go ahead and end the polling now and sharing the results. You should see the results on screen. So Cindy, look at that. Pretty good there. Pretty good.
Very good.
Yeah. Now, Cindy, I'm going to let you jump in here for a minute because the answer is all the above and more. What are a couple of examples of what else trauma nurses could be treating?
Okay, well, one of the big ones is burns. Burns actually are considered a traumatic injury. And one of the things that's great about Blake's Trauma Center is we actually have a burn center here at the hospital as well. So we do take care of burn patients. Another injury is hemorrhagic injuries. So anything that causes life-threatening bleeding is we will of course come to the trauma center. And let's see, your general orthopedic injuries. We actually, the #1 mechanism of injury that brings patients to trauma centers nationwide, probably worldwide, are falls. So, and we're not just talking about our older folks that fall, we're talking about falls that even happen on commercial or industrial sites and things like that. But we have a lot of falls. And so what you find with falls is not only your head injuries, which were listed there, but also your severe orthopedic injuries and internal organ injuries like lacerated livers and spleens and things like that. So really and truly, there is just a multitude of reasons how people become injured unexpectedly and accidentally, and sometimes on purpose. Hopefully, we don't get as many of those. We do not. But so there's a lot of different reasons, but the main ones were listed there.
Well, that's fantastic because I wouldn't have thought necessarily about those other injuries because, when you watch TV and you watch the movies and you're seeing, gunshot victims or you're seeing
Mhm,
traumatic car accidents, and you
mhm,
begin to think that maybe that's all that goes into trauma, but it is wide and varied. Trauma
yeah.
nurses have to be ready for just about anything that walks
Mhm.
in that door, don't they?
Yes, yes, and that's why it requires some special training, and we have to do a lot of ongoing education.
Absolutely. Now, just a little further introduction into what trauma nursing is all about. I'm going to share a video. It's about 4.5 minutes long. And I'm going to look to Cindy because I can see her on my screen first. She's going to give me the thumbs up to make sure that my video is working well for you. So it'll take
Okay.
just a second to bring this up. And here it comes.
We get a lot of car accidents, gunshot wounds, stab wounds. We don't know what's coming in. We don't know what shape they're in. We don't know if they're under the influence of drugs or alcohol. There's no time really for freaking out, or else that patient could be severely impacted. I'm Jennifer Dukes. I'm a level 1 trauma nurse, and this is my life. It's 6:45, and I'm headed to the break room to get my stuff for the day, and then I'm gonna go get shift report from the night nurse. Every day when I get up in the morning, I don't know what I'm gonna hit when I come in these doors, and that's one of the things I love about my job. My shifts are 12 hours. If the day goes well, I can be home by 7:30. Some days that just doesn't happen. Making sure I have everything, because you don't know if you're able to run back to your locker.
Attention camp, 6 is holding on 3-6.
Good morning. All right, what you got, baby?
You're taking mine.
I'm taking 15 through 17.
48-year-old male came in like 6:30.
I just got a shift report from the night nurse. It was a quiet evening here, so I only have one patient right now. That can change at any second. I'm gonna take your blood, and then I'm gonna check your blood sugar. I've been a nurse for 4 years. I've been at Atlanta Medical Center in the Level 1 Trauma Center almost a year. I always wanted to be a nurse. My dad's a physician's assistant. He used to take me on rounds on Saturday mornings, and I just absolutely loved it. Now it's time to chart. So you could have given a med, but nobody knows if it's done unless it's on this computer. Next, I need to check all my rooms, make sure they're clean, they're stocked, and I have all the supplies I need. I promise you, there's usually never a dull moment around here.
Number 2, trauma response, ETA, 10 minutes.
Whenever the trauma alarm goes off, there's a little bit of excitement. Everybody gets that little adrenaline rush. After the alarm goes off, they let us know it's level 1, level 2 trauma, a stroke, what's coming in. Once the trauma arrives, whether it's by ground or by air,
Trauma's in.
the patient is rolled into the trauma bay. They're still not loaded off the stretcher yet, but I'm jumping in and trying to crawl under all the doctors that are around the patient, getting blood pressure, putting them on the monitor, getting their oxygen saturation, making sure that their vitals are stable. I go get meds for the patient that we may need. It is intimidating. You have all these people around the patient. You've really got to be assertive and get up there and do your thing. Anytime you're working a trauma, it is organized chaos. Everybody knows their job, they work their job, they do it. There's not a lot of room for personal space. It's just kind of what happens with traumas. You're doing what you need to do for the best outcome for that patient. Sometimes we get patients and we don't have time to get fully covered in all of our gear. There's no telling what's on me right now. It really could be anything.
Level 2, trauma response, ETA, 5 minutes.
There's two different kinds of offloads off the helicopter. There's hot offloads and there's cold offloads. Hot means that they're not even shutting down. They're coming in really fast. The pilot tells you, we're going to go ahead and unload this patient. Cold means they do shut down the helicopter. Patient's not as sick. They can shut it down, and then we still pull the patient out. A lot of times when patients come in, they aren't talking. They're not responding to us, or they're in so much pain they can't give us that kind of information. They get CT scan head to toe, because then we can pinpoint an injury right away. The worst part of my job, hands down, it would be when you see something on X-ray or CAT scan, meaning that most likely we saw something that could be cancerous. and you just realize their whole world just changed in that very moment. Best part of my job is, one, loving what I do and not knowing what I'm going to come into. There's variety, there's never a dull moment. We're always running. The team, the nurses, doctors, everybody, we all work really, really well together. We've got such a strong team here. It is high stress, but it's a fun job. It's a great job. That's it. That's a day in my life. Thanks for spending it with me.
And no 2 days are ever the same, are they, Cindy?
Not at all. That's actually a great video. It's really a very accurate depiction of what a trauma looks like. A lot of people in the room, a lot of people, it looks like they're stumbling all over each other, but they're really not. They all have a focus and a job to do, and they're focused on that job. And everybody's job in that situation is to save that patient's life.
So when she said it's organized chaos, she wasn't joking, was she?
He was not joking. That is exactly what it is.
Good to know. Now, for those of you who have joined us before, it's time we get into our interview questions so we can find out exactly how Cindy came about to being a trauma nurse. And I like to have everybody take turns asking Cindy questions so we can keep everybody engaged with this presentation. So I'm going to be looking at my screen and I'm going to be calling out names for you all to ask her questions. First one I see is Fiorella and then Olivia. So Fiorella, if you could unmute and ask question number 1, I would sure appreciate your help.
Hi. So what is your job description?
So my job description falls within the parameters of a registered nurse, the same job description that you would find in just about every hospital in the country. And but additionally, I am the trauma nurse coordinator for outreach and injury prevention. So that requires me to be specialized in trauma care. So I have a national certification as a trauma registered nurse. And it also does require a bachelor's degree. So I do have a bachelor's degree as well. So, and my job description is basically that I am a specialist in trauma care for trauma patients, but my main focus is to go out into the community and other places and try to prevent people from coming to my trauma center. I do injury prevention. So I try to teach people the safety measures to take when they're riding a bike, driving a car, climbing on a ladder to put their Christmas lights up, whatever it is. I'm teaching them ways to stay away from the trauma center. So that kind of seems silly, doesn't it? But that's really what our main goal is. We don't want you to come to the trauma center as a victim. So that's my job description pretty much. It's kind of diverse. I do a lot of different things. So.
And the more students will research about nurses, the more they will understand that nurses do so many different things. And
Yes.
that's one of the beauties of having a nursing career, is that you can move through different specialties and different types of positions throughout your nursing
Yes.
career.
And if I could share this, I always share this when I speak to young people who are considering nursing as a potential career. Nursing is so diversified. You can do so many things in nursing. And the thing that I have loved about it, and I've been a nurse, this is my 43rd year as a nurse. I'm an old lady, an old nurse. But what I've loved about nursing is it has always allowed me to tailor my job to my life and not the other way around. So depending on what was happening in my life at any certain time when I was young and having my children, I was able to take a job that allowed me more time at home and more flexibility to be with my young children. And then as they got older, then I kind of moved back into more full-time hours and stuff. So you can do so much. You don't have to be just working on a med-surg floor, you know, emptying bedpans and all that icky stuff that you hear about. You can go into research, you can become an infusionist, you can do things like I do with trauma, you can specialize in maternal baby. There's so much you can do. So don't ever discount nursing because you think it's just a, you know, has a very small scope. There's so much you can do.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. And Olivia, I understand you might be having some technicality issues, but if you are able to unmute and ask question 2, we would like for you to participate. And Jack, you're going to be up on deck. Olivia, can you unmute? Jack, how about yourself?
Where do you work and what is the atmosphere like?
Okay, I work at Blake Medical Center, which is in West Bradenton off of 59th Street. I have an office in what we call our medical arts building. So it's a building next door to the main hospital. I don't spend a great deal of time in my office, but it is a place that I prepare my presentations and kind of coordinate my activities. And I want you to know that as an outreach and injury prevention nurse, what I have to do is I have to look at our trauma registry, which is a registry of every trauma patient that comes to our hospital. And I base my injury prevention activities on the top reasons that people come. So right now, falls prevention is huge for me. I do a lot of falls prevention education, distracted and impaired driving education, motorcycle safety, and pedestrian and bicycle. So this room that I'm in, this messy office, is where I get everything together, but I actually do the majority of my real work in the community. So I'm going to schools, businesses, churches, anywhere, anybody that needs the information, I'm going to give it to you. And we, our trauma center at Blake is responsible for Sarasota County, DeSoto County, and Manatee County. So I can be anywhere in those areas.
And it's important for the students to know that you are able to do these outreach opportunities because of your many years of experience being a trauma nurse and working in the trauma bays. And again, it's just a wonderful example of how you can turn your nursing career into so many different advantages.
Exactly. Yes. This job just suits me so well. I'm just going to keep doing it as long as I can.
Good to know. Let's see, Edith, I've got you up next, and then Angela on deck. Edith, if you could ask question number 3, if you can unmute.
What fellow health professionals do you work with in your career?
All of them. Basically all of them. Physicians, physician's assistants, medical residents and interns, other nurses, physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, radiologists, hematologists. Trauma is a team effort. So a trauma team is who is assigned to a patient as they enter the trauma system. That their entry into the trauma system, excuse me, begins with when the paramedics first roll up on the scene and contact them, and it doesn't end until they are rehabilitated and are able to get back home. So there's so many people that we coordinate with, we care plan with, everybody, social workers. We want to give the patient the best outcome possible. We want to get them back to their life prior to their accident, as close to how they were before it started as we can. So we just work with everybody.
Excellent, excellent to know. Angela, I've got you up for question 4.
What kind of patients do you work with in your career?
All patients, all ages, but all the patients that are going to come to the trauma center and be entered into the trauma system have traumatic injuries, and those are injuries that are usually accidental, can be self-inflicted if it's a gunshot wound or something like that, and it can affect all of the body systems. Could do just one, maybe somebody just has a broken leg. That would be one system that would be a traumatic injury, or it could be multiple systems. Such as you would see in a car accident where maybe someone has a collapsed lung and a broken leg and a contusion on their heart and things like that. So usually the patients that we are working with as a trauma center, they are more critically injured. Some are not quite as bad, those that just maybe have had a bad fall and have fractured a hip or something like that. But very often they're critical.
And now, question 5 is, what is a typical day like? But we've already gone over that. There is no such thing as a typical day because you never know what trauma event is going to happen and come through those doors.
Right.
Ariana, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to share that I can remember only one day in my career where I worked in an emergency room. It was in a little hospital in Georgia that we had absolutely no patient come in that day. And it was so out of character because it was really quite a busy little emergency room, but it was a day shift. And for some reason, nobody came that day. But I do want to share with you that that is true. You never know what's going to happen. And that's part of the excitement. But I love this type of nursing because 99 or 90% of the time, I'd say, when a patient leaves me, they are somehow better. So if they've been my patient, I've either set their fracture, helped sew up their wound, given them pain medicine for their pain, got them ready to go to surgery, splinted their foot, whatever it is, I can immediately see that I have made a difference for that patient. And that's very gratifying for me as a nurse. And it's the ER and the trauma bay is a place that you can actually have that feeling.
And that's an excellent point, because how many of us, when we go to sleep at night, can actually look back and say that we have helped somebody during the day? So it's very rewarding.
It's very
Ariana, I've got you up, and Adlin, you'll be next. So Ariana, I'm going to have you ask question number 6.
Hi, how many hours do you work per day and week, and do these hours impact your personal life?
I actually am a 40-hour employee, but sometimes I will work more hours than that. But my hours are very flexible. So for instance, tonight is I'm working until 7:30, but I've been here since 8 this morning. So because of that, I'll be able to flex my time a little later in the week and maybe get off early on Friday and, you know, go shopping or something. But so it doesn't really affect my personal life, but mostly because at this stage in my life, my children are all grown and my husband also works a very flexible schedule. So we just make it work. It's not a problem. And really, it never has been. As I said before, I've always been able to tailor my hours to accommodate my life and my family.
Now, when you were a bedside trauma nurse, what were the hours like then?
3 12-hour shifts. And I actually preferred working the second or third shift. I don't like the overnight shift, but there was a shift 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. was my favorite. And then there was a shift 3 p.m. to 3 a.m., which I also liked. So, but I chose those. I could have had the option to request a day shift position, which would be 7A to 7P, or a night shift position, 7P to 7A. So.
And it's important that the students understand that there are different shifts that you can work, and there's a difference in pay according to what shift you take.
Yes, if you work the off shifts, you do get a differential, usually sometimes of $1 or $2 an hour, which can be pretty significant. Night shifts sometimes can get a $3 differential. So that would take you from, you know, $12 an hour to $15 an hour, but nurses make a lot more than that anyway.
A lot more. Yeah, we're going to get to that question soon, for sure. Everybody wants to know that. In fact, it's the very next question. Adlin, can you ask question number 7, please?
What type of starting salary can a person expect in this career?
Okay, so I'm going to address the starting salary for a new injury prevention coordinator. Again, remember, most of the facilities that would hire this type of position are going to be looking for someone with a little bit of experience and also an additional degree and some certifications, because you do, like Ms. Dixon said, you kind of have some experience in this stuff to be able to be effective and really know what it's all about. So for a starting salary, you can usually plan on an average of about $45,000. But as you progress and you are a nurse, nurses are paid based on their years of experience as well. So because I've been a nurse, you know, for lots of decades, and I told you I'm not going to say it again, I make a lot more money than that because I've been at it a lot longer. And so I have differentials for my certifications and things like that. But just as a brand new injury prevention coordinator, really haven't gotten much under your belt yet, you could probably count on about $40,000 to $45,000 a year.
And Cindy, since you're doing double duty for us tonight, registered nurses, what's an average starting salary, and then on up to the higher level for registered nurses?
Okay, so a new RN, the last time I checked, I believe the entry level, and that's straight out of school, just past your boards, I believe it's right at $30,000. Please don't quote me on that because I haven't checked on it recently. But nurses, depending on what career path you take in nursing, as we've talked about already tonight, you can make a lot of money if you go on and continue to be educated, always thirst for knowledge. Nurse practitioners, these are nurses, registered nurses who go on and they get an additional degree and they go through nurse practitioner training. These are the nurses that can actually write prescriptions for you and work side by side with the physicians and run clinics independent that are just not monitored, what's the word I'm looking for? They're overseen by a physician. These nurses can make well up into the $100,000 range and a little more. So a nurse anesthetist, even more than that. If you want to learn how to put people to sleep in the operating room, those girls and guys make the most money of all of us. So you can start out in the 30,000 range, maybe a little bit more. And actually, our nursing shortage is so severe right now in the United States. I wouldn't be surprised if it might be even a little bit more for most hospitals. But you can get well up into the $150,000 range, depending on what career path you take within the nursing profession.
Absolutely. It all depends on, if you're starting out with a certificate as a nursing assistant, or if you're a practical nurse or a registered nurse, or have a 4-year degree or that 6-year degree and have the nurse practitioner exam. You can also get a doctorate in nursing. So there's many different factors that go into salaries for nursing. Absolutely.
Yeah,
let's see, who do I have? Let's see, Bianca, and then Mariah and Caitlin, you're on board. Bianca, I've got question 8 for you.
Hi.
Hi.
Why did you decide to pursue this career?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story. My father was a Florida Highway Patrolman, and he had friends who worked in an emergency room in DeLand, Florida. And the girl gave me a job as a clerk in the emergency room when I was 18 years old. So I really just loved it. I was just registering patients in the emergency room, but I just loved the atmosphere of the ER. But I decided I wanted to be a paramedic. So when I went to my mother and my father and told them I wanted to be a paramedic, my father just kind of talked me into, well, why don't you just be a nurse? And I said, okay. So I made the decision to go on and pursue nursing because paramedic would be so much more limited was the reason. He knew as well that I would have so much more opportunity in nursing to do diversified things or other things. So, and I've never regretted that decision. I'm glad he pushed me into it. I would do it all over again.
That's a wonderful story. I always love hearing about how people came into their career, and so many of them say, well, when I was a kid, this is what and that's the way, when you find your passion, you will know it. For sure. Mariah, I've got you up next for question number 9.
Did you face any challenges on the path to your career?
I can't say that I faced any really difficult challenges. Now, nursing school is not easy, and you have to be very focused, and you have to want it, and you have to study. But that's not really a challenge to me. That's just a matter of putting mind over matter. If this is really what you want, and if you're doing something that you really love or you think you're going to love, then you'll be very interested, and it won't be as hard. The challenge that I faced was financial, because I was already out on my own, and I was trying to work at grocery stores and go to school full time. But fortunately for me, I was very lucky. There was a brand new government pilot program in 1977 called the CETA, which is the Comprehensive Employment Training Act. And basically what it was an opportunity for mostly women, young women with children, to better themselves and have careers. I didn't have any children, but anyway, there were only 10 slots in this program through the government. And one of the girls that was in it failed out. So she was dropped from the program. And one of my instructors knew that I was struggling, trying to work and keep a roof over my head. And she just came to me and said, you should apply. This will help you. And so I did, and they did take me, and my GPA jumped up a whole bunch of points because I suddenly had more time to study and I didn't have to work as much. And so on this program, I was paid to go to school, and they paid for my uniforms. They paid for everything. And the premise of this was that they were going to take people who might not be able to ever be really successful and give them a leg up. So I never had to pay that money back. It wasn't like a loan, but I feel like I have paid them back many times because I've been doing this now for 40 years. And I do a lot of volunteer work, and I'm very passionate about doing great things for people. So I'm thankful to the government. Unfortunately, that program is not around anymore, but there are other programs out there that are similar. And right here in Manatee County, if you're ever looking for some help to get into school and be able to make your way, Career Source Suncoast is a great resource as well. So they have some opportunities too. So that was my challenge. It was just financial.
And, you know, it's important for the students to understand that due to the critical shortage of nurses, there are so many scholarships and grants and loans that are available to help you financially get through college, whether it be to attain a registered nursing licensure or all the way up to nurse practitioner. There are county-wide grants, there are statewide grants, there are federal grants. You know, in Sarasota County, there's through the community foundations, there are scholarships and grants you can apply for. Through the National Health Service Corps, which is a federal program, nurse practitioners, they need nurse practitioners. They are willing to pay for some or all of your schooling to become a nurse practitioner. And in return, you would work for them in underserved sites that they need you at the most. So I don't ever want students to worry about how will I ever get money to pay for school. The money is there to be found.
It is. You just have to know how to find it. And fortunately, everybody all the way up to the top level understands that without nursing, our medical system would collapse. So we have to educate our young and entice people to become nurses. It is a great profession. And if you want it, you can find a way to do it. And there will be people that will help you. I joke, Ms. Dixon's right.
Absolutely.
Blake even has a scholarship. We have a scholarship where people can apply through our auxiliary. So
that's fantastic. And everybody needs to do that. And you can always do Google search as well out there when looking for money for your finances for college. Now, some of these questions, you're going to see that I skip over them because Cindy has answered them along the way. So like, for example, does someone in your profession experience traumatic events? Well, duh, she's a trauma nurse. So we got that. How does your profession impact people's lives? She could be saving somebody's life. And for the most part, making it better for sure from when they first come in that doorway to see her. So my next question is going to be question number 12. Caitlin, can you ask question number 12, please?
What is the least satisfying about your career?
The answer to that is truly nothing. There is nothing that I am dissatisfied about with my job. There are things that I don't particularly like or hope that I don't have to, experience too often. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to sugarcoat. I've been doing this a long time, many, many years, and I've held my share of dead babies, and I've watched young people have senseless accidents that could have been prevented, and they're lying on my stretcher, no longer with us. And those are difficult times, but those are not fortunately, those are fewer than the times that we're able to be successful and save a person's life and bring them back to their families. But there are those times. Pediatrics is very difficult as a trauma nurse because it always seems so very unfair that an innocent child would lose their life in a senseless accident or in any type of accident. So that's probably the thing that I like the least, but there's nothing about my job that I find that I'm dissatisfied with.
And we know you've already said, the most satisfying, of course, is the rewarding fact that you absolutely know that you're helping people each and every day.
Yes.
Jennifer, I've got you up next, and Melanie, I'll have you on deck. Jennifer, I would like for you to ask question 14.
I'm not sure which Jennifer.
I've got more than, no, I've only got, oh, I'm sorry, I do. Jennifer Gilray, you're the one.
Okay. So what is most satisfying about your career?
No, we're
or
on
did you do that
14.
one? So 14. What is something you wish everyone knew about your profession?
That you can't believe everything you see on TV, and that nurses, no matter what the specialty is, we're not in it for the money. We make adequate money. We do. If you're a nurse, even if you choose to become a nurse, a med-surg nurse, and medical surgical nursing is what you like, and you don't want to go on and you don't want to get a bachelor's degree, or it's a personal decision. You are still going to make enough money to live your life and not be worried about where your next meal is going to come from. But we don't make $200,000 a year. And like I said, unless you're going to go on and become a nurse practitioner, a nurse anesthetist, get a PhD, whatever, then you can kind of get up there. But the average nurse is going to top out somewhere around 100. And that's after she's been working for 3 or 4 decades. So it's not a profession to go into if you want to become independently wealthy, because that's not what it's about. What we're really about is in nursing. We go into the profession because we truly want to make a difference. We care about people. We want to make the world a little bit better place for folks who are suffering or dying. And so that's what it's about. You have to be a people person if you're going to be successful in nursing. Otherwise, you're going to burn out very quickly because you're going to be very intolerant and not have the compassion that's going to be needed to care for people. Remember that as a nurse, sometimes you're going to see people at their very worst. And so you have to understand that and have compassion and really be devoted to helping them.
Right. It's not a time to give them speeches about different choices they should have made in their lives,
Yes.
so they wouldn't have ended up there. It's about trying to help them get better and get over
Right.
their injuries. Absolutely. Let's see, Melanie, I've got you up. How about we go to question 16?
Okay. How has your profession changed in response to the pandemic?
It has changed a good bit. The pandemic has definitely changed the way that nurses perform their duties and the steps that we take to protect others and ourselves. It has been difficult for us as nurses to tell a family member that they can't come and be with their mother or their father or their spouse. Having a COVID victim on a ventilator in an ICU unit alone, and their family can't be there, you become that person's strength. You become that patient's, you're the conduit between their family and them. And it really takes a lot of strength on the nurse's part. It can be very taxing and very sad and very, so it's really been difficult. Now, a lot of nurses in the beginning, especially in 2020, couldn't handle it. And so a lot of them quit and left the profession. Unfortunately, also in the height of everything, a lot of nurses died because they contracted COVID in the very beginning of it. So it's been a hard road. It is getting better. But I truly believe that most of us decided that we were just going to dig our heels in even deeper and not let this thing win. So now for most of us, we're just trying to do the most we can for the most people we can and try to keep people safe, help them back, get back to health if they do contract the disease, try to keep ourselves and our family members and our friends and everybody else from getting it. And so now the majority of nurses are now fully vaccinated against COVID, which also just makes us stronger, I think. And now we can really just say, yeah, not today, COVID, you're not going to win. So it has been difficult. It has changed the way that we do things. It's changed the way that we can allow. And honestly, I think you should know that family and support is so important to the recovery of any patient. That is much needed. And so when you take that away, it's difficult. And unfortunately, it was necessary that we had to restrict visitation and people could not come in and see and still can't really. It's opened up some. We can allow some people, people in for a certain amount of time now, but it's not wide open again. So it has definitely changed the way that we work. But nurses, we're kind of the stubborn breed. So we just kind of dig our heels in and say, yeah, no, not today. You're not winning. We're going to win this, not you, COVID. So.
And we respect all the work that nurses have done to help people through this pandemic for sure. Now, going back, just a few years, thinking back to when you were a student in high school, what kind of classes would you recommend that students take to prepare them for a nursing career?
All of the science classes that you can take, they're all going to be beneficial, including your natural sciences, like your earth sciences, even that stuff, because you're going to learn about things like soil and dirt and germs and funguses and all of that stuff. So all of the science classes, biology, if you have an opportunity in your high school, some high schools do and some don't, to take an anatomy and physiology class, boy, you would be way ahead of the game there. So get that class if you can get that. And then mathematics. because believe it or not, even with all our technology as nurses, we still have to compute some drip formulas now and then in our heads or on a piece of paper. So you need to understand your math, and it's just going to, it will help you. You may feel like it won't, like I'm never going to need this in my life, but you just might. So I recommend sciences and biology, mathematics, like algebra and geometry to get ready.
Wonderful advice.
And I don't think they offer them. I don't know it. I know in some of the some of the schools that have accelerated or gifted programs, if there are ever classes available to you in psychology, that would be other classes that would be good to take.
Interesting. Yes, as well. I agree, especially for going into trauma nursing. For sure.
Really, all nursing. People are very interesting. So when you start getting into their psyche, in their brain. So
wonderful. Now let's see, and please forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Rocio, can I have you ask the next question? Let's go to 19. No, 20. Let's do question 20.
What education and/or training was needed for your career?
In order to become a registered nurse, you need a 2-year associate's degree in nursing or an associate of science in nursing. So in 2 years, you can come out of school and sit for the state board, the state boards, which is a huge test, and get your license. Now, the beauty of that is, we talked about if you come out, that would be your entry level. That's when you're going to make about 30,000 probably to start. But the good news is you're going to make 30,000. You're not going to make 18,000 that you were making working at Walmart or somewhere. And you're going to be able to go back to school while you work, because once you become a nurse and you get, especially if you get on with a hospital, they're going to help you. They're going to help pay for your additional degree. They're going to give you the time that you need to take your courses. So you can get all kinds of assistance from your employer to go on then and get your bachelor's degree and move up the line. So it's a good entry level, a 2-year degree, especially if you've been struggling. You're going to get out, you're going to make some pretty good money, and you're going to be able to get along and pay your bills, and also go on back to school and get some help doing it.
And again, because there's such a critical shortage for nurses, there are so many of the employers that will pay for part, if not all.
Yes.
For their employees to go on from a registered nurse to get maybe a bachelor's of nursing, or for a bachelor's to go back and get a nurse practitioner, which is fantastic.
Yes, and also a lot of employers now, because the nursing shortage is so severe in the United States, are doing these huge sign-on bonuses. I mean, you can get a sign-on if you go to work and agree to work for somebody for 2 years. You can get a $6,000 bonus right off the top.
Just for agreeing to, yeah, I'll work for you.
Mm-hmm. You have to stay, like usually you have to be there at least 6 months, and sometimes it's a year, but then you get that bonus for signing on. Yeah.
Wonderful. Let's see here. Jennifer A., I've got you up next for question 21.
You have to complete continuing education classes every year, recertify or renew your license every year?
Okay, so for nursing, the renewal is every 2 years. And in the state of Florida, we have to have 24 continuing education hours during that period in order to renew our license. And some of that education is mandated on topics such as human trafficking, domestic violence, infectious diseases, things like that. So a lot of it, we can pick those 24 hours, what we want to, to study, pick a course that we'd like to take. Like for me, I might take a course on, oh gosh, because I'm trying to tell you, I'm drawing a blank in my mind, but something trauma related. And then I would also have to do those mandated courses from the state. Now, in addition, because I'm a trauma nurse with Blake Medical Center, and I'm also a trauma certified registered nurse, I have to have additional trauma training as well on top of what the state requires me to do. But none of that's a burden. It's all provided. It's easy to get it. So it's not a burden at all. And it's usually pretty quick. Your courses, if you take a 1-hour course, you get a 1 credit unit. So over 2 years, 24 credit, contact hours is not really that bad. So, but you do have to, and that's the thing, because, medicine changes all the time. and equipment changes all the time. So you have to stay current. You have to stay up on what's happening.
Absolutely. Now we have about 12 minutes left, and I would like the students to put on their thinking caps and find your chat, because I'm going to ask you a question that we're going to have a discussion with Cindy about. The question is, what are some of the safety risks as a trauma nurse? So imagine yourself as a trauma nurse. You're seeing all these different types of trauma patients come in. What are some of the safety risks for yourself being a trauma nurse? I want you to put your answers in the chat right now. Cindy and I will wait to see those come up. So type in the chat, what type of risks do you think you would face as a trauma nurse? We're going to see what everybody comes up with here first. We've got 4 answers. We've got 15 students, so I'm looking for some more guesses. All right, Cindy, can you see the answers in chat that they're putting in there?
They're popping up, but they're kind of going away before I can read them all.
If you click on the chat toolbar,
Chat button,
and it'll bring them up.
I got it. Yeah.
All right.
I got it. So let's see.
You go ahead and start addressing some of those.
Okay. All right. So several people have mentioned catching a disease or being exposed to infectious diseases, and that definitely is a risk factor for us. And let me tell you what we do. We do something that's called universal precautions. When we contact a patient, when we come in contact with a patient, we act as if every patient might have something that we want to protect ourselves from. Now, that doesn't mean we put on a mask and a gown on every patient that we see, but we definitely use what we call universal precautions, which is protecting ourselves from blood and body fluids, and washing our hands and wearing gloves if we're going to touch the patient's skin or do any kind of procedure on the patient. No, I lost my chat box. Let me see if I can get it back. Where'd it go? I lost it, Joan. I can't find the chat box again.
Does it give you the option down on your toolbar?
The page went to some kind of.
Oh, I'm sharing my screen.
Okay.
But you should still have chat down in your toolbar, but I can read them off to you here. So we have catching a disease. We have possible weapons or patients under the influence.
Yes, and you would be maybe interested to know that most trauma centers, and Blake is included, we have police officers stationed in our trauma and our ER at night, because we do have to be very careful as a trauma. I kind of talked about this, but finding weapons on patients is pretty frequent. And I shared with Ms. Dixon before we started talking tonight that I actually worked in an emergency room in a small town in Georgia where we had a gunshot victim on a stretcher that came in from the community, and one of his peeps, I guess I'll call him, was standing next to the stretcher with him. And unfortunately, the person who tried to kill the patient and shot him out in the field came through our ambulance bay doors, walked to the door of the treatment room, and shot him on the stretcher and shot his friend as well. So, that was very unfortunate. And after that, that was the most secure emergency room I ever worked in. You didn't get in that emergency room unless we knew who you were and we had you on video camera. But so it is very dangerous in emergency rooms, and not only just from weapons, but patients, as I said before, sometimes are just at their worst. I've been assaulted, I've been bitten, I've been punched. People just are not at their best. But fortunately, again, that's not the norm. More patients are, compliant and gracious and grateful for everything you do for them than the other way around. But to answer your question about weapons, that is a concern for us. We are very careful about that, and that's why we do have armed police officers to protect us.
Another good one that I've seen pop up here in chat is how the stress would affect your mental health.
Okay, so here's something that the hospital does for us. If we have a difficult case, maybe it's a young person who's died unnecessarily, maybe it was just a horrific scenario, and it's a very difficult trauma resuscitation with, just so much going on, or maybe it's a baby. It's for some of us, especially some of us nurses, when we were in childbearing age, to lose an infant and hold a dead baby is a very hard thing to do. So what our hospitals do for us is they have debriefing sessions when we have situations like that. And they actually bring in professionals to allow us to talk about it and work through it so that we don't wind up suffering from PTSD and other anxiety and depression type mental health problems. So every hospital I've ever worked in, and again, I've been doing this over 40 years, and every hospital I've ever worked in always has made this available to nurses and other healthcare professionals who might be working on a case like this. The last one I remember here at Blake, it was a young woman who was pregnant, term. The baby would have been born within a few days. She had a moped accident, and she and the baby both died. And we tried to save them both and couldn't, and it was very difficult for the staff for that one because she was very young. So yes, it can be stressful. We can have those issues, but we are given what we need. We have the resources if we choose to take advantage of them to work through those things and spare our mental health.
Absolutely. And thank you to the students for putting some very thought-provoking ideas into the chat. That was very helpful. Okay, so let's see. I need to put something in the chat for everybody to read here for just a minute. Let's see here, and then we'll do our evaluation, and then we'll have any last-minute questions for Cindy. So I'm getting ready to put in the chat a reminder to everybody that the next chat and the final chat for the school year will be Wednesday, May 5th at 6:30. We will be having a doctor as a guest speaker that night, who's a medical doctor, but also a specialist in public health and dealing with family violence. So that's what we're going to have on May 5th. So please remember, and I put the link in there, that you could go ahead and register if you want to. And now I'm going to put the evaluation poll up on the screen. We always like to know what you think about our presentation, so I'm launching that poll right now. If you could please go ahead and answer the evaluation questions. There are just 5 quick questions on your screen. If you could please go ahead and answer those. And after you're done answering, if you have any questions for Cindy that we did not cover, please type them in the chat. Ooh, everybody's answering the evaluation questions very quickly tonight. They are on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, after you've answered your evaluation questions, if you have any questions for Cindy, go ahead and type them into chat. This is your chance to find out all you ever wanted to know about trauma nursing. Looks like we've got 3 more people to answer the evaluation. And Cindy, we have first question came in for you. Is there any advice or hidden things that many people may not know about being a trauma nurse?
That's a very good question. I think I've pretty much covered most of it. I can't think of anything else that would be hidden. We talked about the risk factors. It is not a job without risk. Anytime you're dealing with the public, particularly when it may be at times when they're not at their best. It's going to be risky. It's no different than for paramedics or law enforcement officers. So just know going into it, if you're going to go into that type of nursing, trauma, emergency department, something like that, that is out there, and you need to be just aware of it and just make sure you're prepared and trained on how to deal with it. So, but other than that, I don't think there's any hidden things. If you want to be a nurse, make sure it's really what you want, because I'm going to tell you that old saying that you hear all the time, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, is the truth. Find something that you're really passionate about and that you really enjoy doing. And then it's not a chore to get up and go to work every day. And you really feel like you're living your life then.
Good advice. Good advice. And there's another question that came in. How did you stay motivated throughout school?
Truthfully, I was hungry. No, I'm teasing you. I wanted a better job. I just really wanted to be a nurse, especially, I told you my dad talked me into it. But once I got into nursing school and really started to learn about what this was about, that I actually could treat patients and develop a nursing, had to do the nursing process and develop a care plan and make a difference. I just got really wrapped up in it. So again, I just think, just do your best to make sure you pick something that you think you're really going to love doing, because if you like it, school is easier. I'm going to give you a perfect example. My middle daughter is now a nurse. She's a supervisor. She's an RN, and she's a supervisor for a home care company out East Manatee. When she was in high school, she struggled. She struggled so much. She had to do remedial reading all the way into her first couple of years at junior college. But let me tell you what happened to this girl. When she got into nursing, she went to Galen School of Nursing. She graduated second in her class.
Wow.
Because she was finally doing something that she truly thought she would love and she wanted to do. And so it was easier for her. She was more motivated by that. So just keep your eye on the prize. When you get into school, sometimes it seems like 2 years is just forever. And trust me, I know us old people say this to you all the time. It'll fly by. 2 years will fly by. It really will. It will go fast, especially if you're busy trying to become a nurse. So just stay motivated, keep your eye on the prize, and just know that you're worth it. You're worth the effort.
That is excellent advice for sure. And if you all have enjoyed listening to Cindy this evening, as I have, I'm going to remind you of our website in the chat, www.gsahec.org. I just put that in the chat. If you go out there and you look under student programs, you will see that we have our virtual health careers summer camp application is out online. So if you haven't heard about that from your teachers yet, I'm giving you a little heads up that Cindy and I are going to be coordinating together a virtual health careers camp. And there's going to be guest speakers every day from Blake Medical Center. There's nurses and doctors and physical therapists and the CEO, and she has all sorts of wonderful things planned. It's June 14th through the 18th, 10 a.m. until noon every day. So it's just 2 hours on Zoom, Monday through Friday, June 14th through 18th. So if you're interested, go to our website or contact me, and we can get you that camp application list. We would love to have you in our summer camp. And it is now time. Okay, Jack, I'll have you stay on. Well, Jack, it's 7:31. Jack, why don't you unmute and ask me a question about summer camp?
Do I need a specific grade to enter summer camp?
Any specific what?
Specific grade.
Grade. That it is for high school students because it's part of a grant that we have through our organization. So it is for high school students. So 9th grade through 12th grade. Great question. And that information is all out on the summer camp application as well. If you go to our website and go under student programs, it'll tell you all about it.
I mean GPA.
3.0. And that information is out there as well. Good question. All right. Well, Cindy, thank you so much for being our guest speaker tonight. I'm going to have you stay on for just a minute after all the students log off. But thank you, everybody, and I hope to see you the first Wednesday in May back for our final career chat for the school year. Thank you, everybody. And
Thanks a
good
lot.
night. You're getting a lot of thank yous in the chat, Cindy.
Oh, good. You're all welcome. It was very nice to be on with you tonight.
Everybody's slowly logging off.